So hey people, how are you doing? Welcome back with another session of my React series, and today we are going to learn about use effect. Yes, after you state directly use effect. I hope you enjoy this session, and if you do so, please subscribe to this channel because we are going to learn a lot of stuff about React in and out. Without further delay, let's get into the business. When you talk about the use effect hook, we will talk a lot about a term called side effects. Now, what exactly the side effect is? Yeah, so side effect can be anything that is not directly related to the output that you are expecting from a component. Now, let us get back to that old discussion of a pure function. What exactly a pure function is? A pure function is a simple function that provides the same output for the same input. That's what the pure function is. So that means if you are doing a summation of two numbers and passing two numbers and want a return of the addition of those two numbers, a pure function is only supposed to do that, not supposed to do anything else. Even if you put a console.log within that function to log the result into the browser console, the console.log is a side effect, right? So the side effect is something that you don't intend to relate to your output directly, but the function is still doing this. In terms of React components, the things are kind of same. In terms of that, the side effect means that the component's output, whatever is expected, but there are operations that are happening within the component that are not directly related to the output of it. For an example, if you're showing the count, like count 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, an increment of a count from a component, but at the same time, if you are putting a console.log into that particular browser's console for every count, that is a side effect because the final render of the count has nothing to do with the console that you are doing. Right? So console.log, yes, we it's a very simple thing, but it's a side effect. But what are the other kind of side effects that we have? Can we just see that? So let's do that. So the common side effects are, you can do a DOM manipulation. Yeah, the moment that you do a DOM manipulation, that may not be directly related to your component output because React is declarative and it does lot of DOM manipulation by itself in the background and doesn't really expect you to do. But on top of that, if you do any DOM manipulation, it might be because of the side effect that you are doing. Making an asynchronous API call. If you want to do a network call and then want to fetch some data and want to show the data into the UI, it means that you will be doing the rendering of the data. That's the component's output, that's component's objective. But making the asynchronous call to fetch the data is a side effect because that's something that is not related to, that is not component's output. Basically, to get the output you are doing this, so making an asynchronous call is a side effect. Then writing to say a storage, maybe a local storage or disk or anywhere, any kind of IO operation, input output operation. You want to probably do a subscription to an observable, that is another one, and even a console.log. Just now we spoke about this one, right? So these all are side effects. So when we talk about use effect hook, we are going to talk about side effect. Everything that you do which is not your component's output, which might influence the component output, might not influence the component output, but it is something that is you are not showing as part of your component output. Now, what a component renders, its side effects must be separated out, right? A component's rendering logic and the side effect logic must be separated out. In the introduction of hooks, we have learned that one of the purpose that managing this state, managing these side effects should be separated out from the component as much as possible, and that's why the hooks are there to help us in the functional component creation, right? With the functional component. Now, when use effect hook comes into picture, its job is to take out the side effects from your rendering logic. All the side effects that we are going to do inside the use effect hook, so that we are not doing it completely in your components logic. We are completely taking out all the side effect related items into the use effect hook. Components lifecycle, we discussed again this in the hooks introduction video. There are lifecycle like on mounting, on state change, on props change, various lifecycle that a component has to go through. In each of this lifecycle, there will be a chance of managing the side effects. And in terms of managing the side effects, useEffect hook will come very handy. So now let's learn 6 usages of useEffect hook that will come in terms of managing the side effects. We'll learn them first at a high level, and after that we'll get down into seeing examples and learn with the examples. Okay, so let's do that. Alright, so let us now learn the 6 usages of useEffect hook. The first thing that we want to do is to understand the syntax a bit, and then want to understand like how to use that. What are the different use cases? Okay, so this is the syntax of an useEffect hook. What exactly? After you import that useEffect from the React, you actually put the useEffect in your component, and it takes generally 2 parameters. Okay, here we are showing the first parameter, which is actually a function. So if you see the useEffect hook here, it is taking a function. All your side effect code that you have to kind of manage for a component, you have to separate out from the component's render, you will be writing inside this function. Okay, so this is the syntax of it. And the second thing is like you also pass something called a dependencies, a dependency array. We'll see that in a while. That is as a second argument to this useEffect hook. Now, if you don't pass this second argument, the dependency array, it means that you want this useEffect, the side effect to run on every render of this component. So if you have a use case of running the side effect on every render of the component, you just do useEffect, put your side effect inside this function, don't declare any dependencies at all. Now what if you want to run the side effect only on the mounting or the initial render, and after that you don't want to run the side effect at all? A simple use case for this will be like when the component loads or component mounts, you want to kind of fetch some data from the database, and after that you don't want to do it on the every render. For you, the single render fetching is enough. So in that case, that side effect you are going to put over here. And did you see the dependency array over here? This is a dependency array, but in this case this is empty because we don't have any dependencies to declare here for the side effect to run, because we want to run this side effect only on the initial render. Okay, so that is the second use case. Now the third use case we'll go is about runs only after the state changes. Now in the React, the rendering part is mostly driven by 2 factors. One is state, another is props. We learn that in the component video. So when the state changes, the state value changes, right? State value can change. We have seen that in the useState. So in the state changes, you want to run the side effect. Maybe if the loading is done, then you want to do something, right? So that kind of state changes. So run only after state changes. If you want to do, put the state into your dependencies array. That's the only thing that you need to change. So hereafter, whenever the state changes and the rendering happens, this particular useEffect is going to run. So this is what we can capture. Now apart from state, there is another way the rendering can be impacted, that is using props. So the next thing would be runs only after the props changes. So if I pass the props to the dependency array, and again this is an array, so multiple state, multiple props you can pass with a comma separated value. So when the props changes, the side effect runs. So this is the fourth one. Now the next one could be a case where both state and props change, or multiple state, multiple props change. So maybe that is the time you have to actually pass the states and props as a comma separated value to this particular array, and that's what you're doing. Great. So in the side effects, you might initialize certain things. You might just start using, for example, you have added certain the local storage as part of side effect, and when the component unmount, you just want to kind of clear them off, or before the next render you want to clear things off. Set timeout, set interval kind of methods, which actually the browser API, you might want to clear those timers when after every render or when the component unmounts. For that, there is a way to clean up the side effect. When you want to clean up the side effect, after declaring all your side effect, all the cleanup logic you have to write inside a function, and then you have to return this function. Here I have written an arrow function. I'm returning an arrow function. You can actually also declare like return function cleanup, like with the function name, and then you are returning this. So every time you return something from the use effect after declaring the side effect, it is like doing the cleanup logic over here, and the cleanup logic runs when the component unmounts or every time before the next rendering. So these are the 6 primary use cases where things will be used, and we'll be seeing most of these cases, almost all of these cases, with the programming logic right after now. So if you have learned this one now, make sure that you comment in this particular video about what is your understanding of 6 usages, what are the usages you are already using, and something that you learned newly in this particular video. So let's talk about usages in the comment section. Okay, right now we'll go back and start seeing some examples of use effect with some project based learning. All right, so let's do that. All right, so let's learn by example. So the first one that we are going to do now is by correcting something which is wrong, and while doing that we'll be writing some use effect code and try to learn that. So let's look into the code that we have right now. I'm sure you will understand because you have learned the basic of React, you have learned about useState already. What it does basically, it is importing useState from React, and then it has a state variable called random number and a way to set a random number. It is initialized with a random number between 1 to 5. And what exactly happening in the JSX part is like, if the random number is 1, then say hello. If it is 2, howdy, 3, hi, and so on. There are certain greeting messages are given. Now this is fine, but the problem comes is like, what if you have to do like between 1 to 10, then you will come here and try writing this kind of conditions over here inside the JSX, which is not that great. So ideally what you will be doing is basically you will be with your motive of writing greeting messages based on random number, you want to take this logic out. You want to take this logic out, and you want to take this logic out somewhere which is not in your rendering part, because your rendering motive here is to show a random greeting message. But the computation of this random getting message based on a random number should be taken out of your rendering logic and should be put into where? Side effect. Exactly. So we'll be putting these things into the side effect. Now, once we put into the side effect, it means that we need something called use effect, right? We have learned the 6 usages of use effect. We are going to see almost all of them, maybe 5 of them, because the one which is like without any dependencies, running use effect on every render is seldomly used. It's not used very widely used. So I'm not going to touch base too much into that, but every other things I'm going to kind of show you along with this example. So first thing that we will be doing is bringing a side effect, which is like probably not doing anything other than printing a console.log. So to do that, what we'll do is like, let's do use effect. This is the hook, and this is not going to work until you import it. So let's import use effect. I have imported now. And once you do use effect, what is the syntax of use effect? Of course, it takes a function, right? This is a callback function where you should write the side effect and then the list of dependencies. And in our case, the first example we're going to see here is like there is no dependencies that we are passing. So it means that it is going to run only once, only after the first render. So it is not going to do on mount only. It is going to run. It is not going to run after anything because we have not specified any dependencies. Had you specified any dependencies, this code, the side effect that we are going to write here, it would have run for every dependency changes. Now let's write a side effect. The simple side effect is console.log. Yes, we are writing into the log, so it is a side effect. So we consider this as a side effect. We'll be writing a console.log. Say random greeting. Alright. So simple side effect. The moment I refresh that, it will kind of start putting this thing into over here. You see this random greeting. Fair enough. It's a side effect because this is not related to my rendering directly, and I have isolated this one. But this is not a great example of side effect. So what we'll be doing is like we'll be taking the next example where we'll be taking out this logic completely from here, because we don't want this logic to be in the rendering part. Rendering part should be very simple, where it should just show the random message. How to come to this random message, what is the conclusion, what is the computation, all these things should go out of rendering logic, should go into a side effect. So for that, we'll be now changing this use effect a little bit. So let's do that. So the first thing we'll do, we'll be creating one more state variable. Let's call it as greeting. So this is how it is, const greeting, and say call set greeting, and let's initialize this one with an empty string. Let's not put anything. We can also put a hello or whatever it is, but at this point of time empty string works. And what we can do is, like, now our condition is based on the random number, we have to provide this greeting. So for this greeting to generate, the random number is the dependency for this greeting to generate, right? So you are getting, greeting is a dependency, random number is a side effect, and due to this side effect, it's other way. Random number is a dependency, and greeting is the greeting, generating the greeting is the side effect. And once the greeting gets generated, what we can do is, like, we can actually render that. So let's do that. So for that, we'll be writing one more useEffect. So let's do this useEffect over here. And in this useEffect, we'll be putting a dependency called random number. So let's go ahead and put the random number as a dependency. Now, based on this random number, what we are going to do, we are going to create this random message, right? Random greeting message. So let's put a switch case. So I will be just doing one thing. Instead of writing this entire part, let me just copy paste the switch case that I have written already. Yeah. So what it is basically, for each of these random number dependencies, I am now setting a new state variable for this greeting. Okay, simple enough, straightforward enough. Now the next thing that I have to do is, like, just take out everything possible, every logic that we have written over here, and instead of that, just put what? Greeting. That's pretty much it. So let's look into the code once more. What we have done, we have a state variable called random number, which is initialized with a random number, and we have taken another state variable called greeting with a updater function of set greeting. We have a useEffect which says that, hey, for this random number dependency, the moment the random number changes, what I want to do is, like, I want to set the greeting with some greeting message based on the random number, and the greeting state variable I am putting into my JSX. Now if you see in my JSX, the rendering part, the objective of the rendering is to show a greeting message. I am exactly doing that. Anybody looking into this part from here to here, they will understand, hey, I am showing a greeting message. There is no computation. How things gets computed, all the side effects are inside useEffect. That's the benefit of useEffect hook. You actually taking out all your side effects from the rendering logic. Let's refresh it and let's see the output of this one. Okay, so we see the output, the greeting for the first random. Now I'll refresh. Once I refresh, it will generate another random number. For another random number, the dependency changes. For the dependency, there will be a new greeting message, and a new greeting message will be printed. So let's see that. Once I refresh this one, here you go. This time I got hello. I can actually bring some styling back so that it looks a little bit nice. So let's do that. Alright, so I've just allowed it by h2 with a class name called message, and the class name, the message is there in the app.css file. So this is giving a yellow background, a little bit bigger text. That's fine. So our first two use effect, one is without any dependencies. Alright, one is with a dependency, and these all are working. Now here one more thing I would like to do. What I'm going to do is, like, for the random number that it is creating or generating this message, for that particular random number, I am going to store that random number into browser's local storage, because I want to show the cleanup of side effect usage in a while. So let's do that. So first, what I'll do is, like, do a window dot local storage dot set setup. This is how you store a local storage variable. Let's give it a name called, say, random. Okay, it's become random, and then give the random number to this one. So what will happen is, now for every refresh that I do, every time it generates a new message, it is going to set this random key with the random number value and store it into the browser's local storage. We should be able to see that in a while. So if you see here, you see that random2 got added and bonjour has come. Random2 bonjour. Let me refresh and get another random number, another random message. We'll see this one changing as well. Sure. So now new random is 4 and new message is given tag. So that's what we see. So this is great. So we have seen that if you want to kind of write to a storage, I have also isolated that particular use effect into the use effect hook. That side effect is also been isolated. Now the next example of use effect we are going to see is like right now we have seen state as a dependency. Along with the state as a dependency, we also want to see props as a dependency. Once props change, a combination of props and state changes, how exactly the side effect we can manage. Let's take that as an example. Alright, so I have changed the example a little bit here. Okay. In this change form of this example, what is happening is like now the greeting component takes a props called random max. So if we see the calling of this greeting component, I am already passing a props called random max and initialized with a value of 8. What exactly random max is like? I am saying that okay, every time I was hard coding that it will generate a random number between 1 to 5. Now I'll be controlling from outside between what range it should generate a random number. So in this case, if I pass 8, it should generate a random number between 1 to 8. That's all. That's the only changes I have made. Now, apart from that, one more change that I have made over here is called in the use effect. I have written some extra code. You have seen this code already, right? I am storing the random number. Whenever the random number changes, I am storing into the browser local storage. Apart from that, I am doing a logic. The logic I am saying, every time it generates a random number, in any case, the random number, if it matches to the random max, I store another local storage variable called jackpot is equals to true, otherwise jackpot equals to false. So it means when it generates the random number, while generating the random number at any point in time, if it generates the random number of 8, where random max is 8, and this will equates and it will do a jackpot of true. I am doing this because to demonstrate this particular dependency case. In this case, I have two dependencies now, not only the state variable, I also have the props. So it means that whoever is the use caller or consumer of this greetings component, if they change the props, if this props changes from 8 to 7 to 6 to whatever, basically this use effect is going to get called again because this random max props is getting changed. So now not only the state change, because of the props change also, we will be able to run this use effect. We will be doing the required computation, we will be doing the required condition, required storing, but again look into my rendering logic untouched. So the rendering part is completely untouched. The best part over here is like you are not mixing the rendering and the side effect logic at all. So let's see this one in action, right? So for that, what we'll do, we will just save these changes once and see how exactly this impact. Okay, so it's refreshed. It says CIAO. So this is like case 5. So if I go to application, I see random is 5, jackpot is false because I am looking for 8. The moment the 8 happen, it's basically going to do that. Now, if I keep doing this, one by one, if I keep doing this, the moment I reach 8, basically that's the max, and when in sequence, I'll see the jackpot will be equals to true. Alright, so that's the case where you have both state and props changes done. Either of the things changes, your use effect is going to run, and because of that, your state variable will change. You will do all related and relevant logic over here, and then you will be your your rendering part still become lean. You don't mix any other logic with it. Side effects are already isolated. Okay, so the next thing that we are going to see is about cleanup. We have created a side effect, how to clean that up. Okay, so the last thing that we want to talk about is about side effect cleanup. So we have created a side effect. For example, side effect is of course the computation of a greeting message based on the random number. But apart from that, other side effects that we have created is storing into the local storage. We are actually storing two properties. One is random, another is jackpot into local storage. We want to clean them up. How to do this cleanup? If you have to do some side effect cleanup, you have to return a function from your side effect use effect callback. So in the use effect, this is the callback function. Now if I want to run a side effect cleanup, what I am going to do is basically I am going to write a function over here. Let's say return and then an arrow function, and I am going to write all my logic over here. Instead of this, you can also do like, if you want something much verbose, you can do like cleanup, any name that you can give. So whatever I am writing inside this one, all my side effect cleanup logic. Before I write the logic to clean these things up, you have to remember three things. One is like how the cleanup work. The first thing is like after the mounting, the initial rendering of it, this callback run, right? The useEffect callback run, but this cleanup never runs for the first time. But every other subsequent rendering, before your side effect callback gets kicked off, your cleanup gets run once to clean things up, and again your side effect gets set. Again, when the rendering happen, when basically the next rendering, re-rendering, again the cleanup gets called, clean these things up, again the side effect is called. So that is the way the cleanup makes sure that on every rendering it performs certain kind of cleaning up. And the last thing that you should remember is like when we unmount one component, you have to be assured that if you have such function and any logic written inside this function, that cleanup has to happen. Okay, so now what we'll be doing is like, let us do some cleanup. So we'll do like console.log of cleanup, and we'll be doing window.local storage say remove item, because that's the way we'll be removing the key, and then give the key name, or key name is random. And after that, what we'll be doing like jackpot. Okay, so what we are doing is basically we are removing with our side effect. There are two things we are removing. Okay, there is a problem with my syntax. Yes, of course, follow the parentheses, never do that, save it. You should be able to see the things running. Okay, all right. Now, how am I going to see that these dependencies are going off, these side effects are going off? Let us do one very simple thing. Why not? You know what? This local storage thing, irrespective of whatever you do until your browser is up, you close the browser and open the browser, the local storage things are going to stay up. It's not like session storage that once session is killed, this is gone. But as I told that I am now forcefully cleaning this off on my component unloading. So it means if I take this particular component out, and instead of that, if I just put on high, so what is going to happen basically, this is going to go away. High has come here. Have you noticed those key and values over here in the local storage? Gone. Because that component has unmounted, and because of the component got unmounted, it has run its cleanup logic. In the cleanup logic, I have given a console.log cleanup, and it has removed both random and jackpot. Now, the proof of it that this guy got called, I can just go to console and we'll be able to see this cleanup. That means this cleanup has ran. So that is all about the side effect cleanup. So we have learned all important aspects of useEffect, how to run it only on the first render without specifying dependencies, how to do the state changes dependency side effect, state and props changes dependency side effect, doing the cleanup. Then there is of course one more variant where you have to run the side effect always, don't give that dependencies at all, don't pass this empty array at all, then it will run always. If you have that need, yes, please do that. That's pretty much about useEffect. I hope that you are now much more confident in utilizing and using useEffect hereafter. So, hope you liked learning about useEffect. Alright, so we have now learned about useState and useEffect. Now is the time to learn writing custom hooks. Are you serious? Yes, we are. So we'll be writing custom hooks, 2 custom hooks in our next session. Stay tuned for that. But before I go, please subscribe to this channel because we are going to do a lot of cool stuff going on. And one more thing, from this week onwards, I am going to start some kind of quiz or task based on the videos that I am sharing. So please stay tuned for this one into our community page. Very shortly, within a couple of days, I am going to give you the first task that you have to perform using all that we have learned so far in this React series. Are you up for it? I'm sure you are. See you then at the other side of this. Till then, stay well, stay healthy. Thank you.